Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about an issue that I've actually raised before, which is very concerning and should be concerning to all of us and should be headline stuff across the entire media landscape, but it won't be, and it'll be well hidden and well concealed. The issue is the amount of well-paying jobs that are not in the private sector but are in the government and NGO sector. Now, just looking at the best paid jobs in Australia as an example, these are advertised jobs. I'm sure there are plenty of jobs through the patronage network that go on, but in terms of advertised jobs, of the best paid jobs in the country, 85% of the best paid jobs are government, NGOs or government quangos, public service jobs. Now, this is a huge, like if you even go back 25 years, you wouldn't find a single government job or NGO job or quango job in the top, the best paid jobs in the country. Not even one, not a single job. But today, it's, as I say, 85% of the best paid jobs in the nation not in the private sector. Now, if we also then take out the best paid private sector jobs that are more or less working for companies that are completely dependent on government contracts, then we can bring it down even further to around 11% that are in the private sector. So this is astonishing. Nor are the private sector jobs notably better paid than an equivalent sort of gig in the public service. So here's head of a public service department that all packaged up with benefits is about $800,000 a year. Now, you have to put this in some perspective, and this was a point quite well raised by a fellow YouTuber called Red Pill Germany. If you haven't seen his videos, it's worth heading over there, Red Pill Germany, and having a look at some of them, particularly a more recent one about, I don't know, we call it corruption necessarily, but dirty business in the media, government-funded media landscape in Germany. So, but coming back to the how people are being richly rewarded, what you think would be quite a senior job in the private sector is paying less than it is in the public sector. Now, in the public sector, these people aren't risking their own money. They're not risking anything at all. They've got long-term contracts with very generous payout clauses if the contract's broken for any reason. Now, these aren't high-powered people. They're just people that are maybe considered reliable in pushing the globalist cause, or you could call them globalist enforcers, influencers, ideological fellow travellers. They're not people with any skill in either organisational side of things or contractual or commercial or anything. They have no skills. They're just well-connected people with what are considered by the globalists to be the right ideas. They're corrupt, they're lazy, they love putting their hands in the trough, they're entitled, and really they've got nothing to offer. But the globalists believe they're useful to the globalist cause. And the globalists don't care about the collateral damage they're causing as long as they get their project in place and fully enforced and all opposition crushed. So these are people that shouldn't be well paid. And if you look at those equivalent jobs 25, 30 years ago, they weren't very well paid. The pay was very ordinary, in fact. You had to do it because you really liked it or you really wanted to do it, or you were so useless you couldn't get a job in the private sector anyway, or whatever. But these people, they weren't well paid years ago. And if you look at the relative, the inflation of salaries in the public service, in the quangos, the quirky consulting roles that these people seem to land and all that sort of thing. You look at the inflation there; it's quite astonishing. Here's just a case in point. Now, this is from 1991. there's the equivalent job, if you like, in the private sector pays about $45,000, and the job this is in an NGO or a Quango, I guess you'd call it, pays about 28,000. So big difference there. The private sector job pays a lot better. You're expected to work longer hours, harder. You can get fired for non-performance. These sorts of things. Now the NGO, Quango, public sector jobs, they offered very high job security, a job for life in effect. And you could start there in the public service at the age of or maybe 21 after you finish some bullshit degree, and then you can retire at 65, and you've got maybe you weren't that well paid. I mean, you paid okay, but you had quite a generous pension scheme, and again you had that job continuity and job security that someone in the private sector wouldn't have. So $28,000. Now you look at that same job today, it's appreciated so that the rate of increase is almost double the rate that the private sector job has increased, in fact, slightly more than double. So, and why has that happened? Our NGOs, are they having to engage in more risk, or saying more money is being flushed into the NGO system than ever before? That's maybe part of the reason why they're paying more money, but it's not going to people who are any better qualified or anything like that than people were before. There's there's activists and useful flunkies and stooges for the globalist cause there, but the overall situation is that the private sector is not only shrinking, which it is, it's shrinking into crony capitalism, cartels, oligopolies, monopolies, that sort of thing, cozy government contracts, and the like. So, but on top of that, the other side is expanding, but only expanding in the areas of influences to push the globalist project. So, say in the public service, people that really do real work, like nurses, they're not getting paid anymore. Then their wages aren't appreciated at the same rate of all these others. So, really, it's anyone involved in pushing and forcing the globalist cause, influencing the public to accept globalization or to be shamed and cowed and so on into not questioning or opposing it. Those are people that are getting paid. So say for example, a news announcer at the government broadcaster. Now here's a news announcer that is probably not too bad, but she's getting paid, $300 and something thousand a year, and I doubt in the real world she'd get more than, wouldn't even get half, not even a quarter of that in the real world. But she, with a straight face and with suitable gravitas, delivers the latest globalist talking points. We're surrounded by white supremacists. Hitler is everywhere, and all that sort of stuff. And she does that with a straight face, obviously knowing that it's outrageously untrue. But she does that, and in return for all that influencing of the public's mind, she's well paid. But if she had to go out and produce something to actually earn her money, then she wouldn't get out of, again, would be paid. I doubt she'd even make the average wage. Now I'm looking here at a regional town that's probably 120 miles, 170 kilometers or something from Sydney, from downtown Sydney, and if you look at the average wage, and you count the amount of jobs advertised in that region that pay the average wage or better. So say for example, there's 2,000 jobs in this region advertised online. The job boards, online job boards, say it's 2,000 jobs, and if you count the amount of jobs that pay the average wage or above, it goes from 2,000 down to just under 300. That's how few jobs pay the average wage or better in this regional town. Then you look at out of those jobs, how many are government jobs, and 97% are government jobs. And of the 3% that remain, they're all dependent on, oh no, there's actually one that isn't, I'm just looking at now, that pretty much they're all dependent on government contracts to get by. So technically there's not, well, other than one, but technically there's not a single job in this region that isn't either in the public service, for an NGO, or totally reliant on government payments and contracts for that purportedly private business to exist. And it's clearly a cozy deal they've been given by government. So really there's zero private sector in any job that pays the average wage or better. Now if you look at the 2,000 jobs and you look at the amount of jobs that are paying 20% less than the average wage, so we're starting to head into near subsistence territory now, and that's nearly half of them. So in this regional town, half the jobs are paying a subsistence wage or less. So that just goes to show the influence of government now. So if the government, the pro-globalist controlled government media, if they want to squeeze the population of any Western country now, they can deny you any employment that's above subsistence, because that is just about totally government controlled now. So the next step is the universal basic income, really, but it's kind of already there in a de facto sense, and really the loyal people supporting. You ask the average public servant about the global, not that you mention the globalist project, but you go through the globalist talking points like the mass immigration and critical race theory being taught in schools, white supremacists are everywhere, and the legal department, the Justice Department has to go after them. Arbitrary arrest, arbitrary imprisonment, that's okay, and they'll pretty much support every globalist talking point. And if you look at there's now if you like a special, not a decision-making elite, but an enforcement elite that are enforcing the globalist project, and that's the public service, because they're now being paid better than the private sector. They've still got a lot of job security, and so they're the elite that have been trained to see everyone else as just the unwashed, the hoi polloi, the plebeian flunkies that should be put in their place, that don't deserve legal rights, that should be arbitrarily arrested. And that's where we're heading if we're not there already. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.